Hi there and welcome. I'm glad you could make it. In this course, I'm going to be teaching you basic coding for the web. The class is going to cover HTML, CSS, and JavaScript, and it's intended for beginning programmers that need to learn about basic programming structures. I chose these languages because they're so versatile and useful for a variety of careers. They're used in medicine, in marketing, in R&D, in engineering, in research, or anybody who just wants to throw something together in a web page and wants to go a little bit beyond what a canned web page creator can give you. So it'll give you some tools to really make yourself powerful when it comes to internet programming. And with that, we'll get started. To navigate through this Google site, you're going to go to the Home menu up in the upper right corner, and then just choose whatever lesson you're on. Okay, so let's start with the presentation that says Coding for the Web. So we're going to learn about HTML, CSS, and JavaScript. In this first lesson, we'll cover how the internet works, what are HTML, CSS, and JavaScript. We'll learn how to set up a project in Visual Studio and a Google site. These are the tools that I'm going to be working with to create the code and then host the code. There are many other tools that you can work with. These are just my personal favorites. And we'll learn how to write our first basic web page. So the first thing I'd like you to do is, as soon as I tell you to pause, you're going to pause and you're going to go back to the Google site and watch the video titled A Packet's Tale. I'll show you where it is on the website. So if you go to lesson 1 and you scroll down a little bit, there's the video for A Packet's Tale. Go ahead and watch it and then come right back. Okay, now that you've watched the video, it should answer some of these questions that you may have always wondered about how the internet works. Where does information on the internet live? How does it get to you? How does it know where to go? And what if there's an error and the information can't get there? You learned that information travels in the form of short packets, and those packets have an internet address, an IP address, and they also have a number indicating what order the packet is going to be reassembled when it gets to its destination. You can find out some basic diagnostic information about your computer by using a command prompt. So I want to guide you through a couple of exercises here. Down here in your Windows search box, you're going to type in CMD for command, and you'll get a command prompt. It's a little bit hard to see on my screen, so I'll have to talk you through what it shows. But in the upper corner here, you can see there's a little blinking cursor, and if you type in ipconfig, then you get some information about your computer, including the IP address. Notice there's several different kinds of IP addresses, but two of the interesting ones are the Ipv6 address and the Ipv4 address. The Ipv4 address is now a relic. It's becoming obsolete because there aren't enough Ipv4 addresses for all the computers in the world. So you'll see an Ipv4 address consists of 4 numbers. Each one is 0 through 255. If you do 256 to the 4th power, you'll get a number that's pretty big, but it's not big enough to cover every internet-connected device in the entire world, and everyone needs a unique IP address. So the Ipv6 address is a solution to that. I'm not sure why I have 2 Ipv6 addresses showing up in the command prompt. That's interesting to me, but I can tell you that these different fields each consist of up to 4 characters, and those characters can be any digit 0 through 9, and also the letters A through F. So you have a much larger number of Ipv6 addresses, and we shouldn't run out of Ipv6 addresses for all of our internet-connected devices. Another tool that you can use to do some basic internet diagnostics is ping. So if you type in the command ping, and then you type in a web address that you're familiar with, like let's say google.com. It sends 4 short packets to google.com and then waits for a response to find out how long it took for the information to travel both ways. So it got 4 replies from google.com, and the average amount of time to get one of those replies was about 11 milliseconds. So it's a way of checking on the health of your internet connection as you're connected to another website. So try pinging a website that you're familiar with and just kind of find out how long it takes for the information to get to and from. It can be sort of interesting to just check, and you can also see the IP address on those websites. I find it interesting that google.com has an Ipv6 address, but amazon.com is still holding on to its Ipv4 address. So one other special thing to know about IP addresses is that there's a special IP address, 127.0.0.1, and that one always refers to this computer. So whatever computer you're currently on, you can talk to yourself by doing 127.0.0.1. So just a little information about how information travels back and forth on the internet. Now, one of the ways that you get information to and from the internet is by pulling up a web page. And a web page mainly consists of text bounded by tags that's called HTML, Hypertext Markup Language. And Hypertext Markup Language is the skeleton where all the rest of the things that are on the internet kind of are hung from. This is the basic language of the web. And when your computer fetches a web page, it gets the text and the content that's on the web page. And then it also gets some markups that explain to the computer how to display that information. So HTML is one of those languages. It's not necessarily a coding language where it executes instructions step by step, but it's a markup language that teaches the computer how to display that information. There are two other languages that are sort of the backbone of internet pages. CSS is the other one, and that stands for Cascading Style Sheets. And it's another markup notation that sort of lets you choose how that web page looks and feels. CSS is often used to make the same web page look different on a desktop versus a Padlet versus a phone. And then JavaScript is an actual programming language. It has a set of instructions that run from beginning to end, and it's used to make web pages interactive. So we're going to be learning all three of these throughout this course. HTML is super easy to learn, and we'll start off by just making a little web project in Visual Studio to teach us how to do it. There are instructions here, but I'll start you off with it. Now, I'm using Visual Studio version 2017. You may have a later version, but the instructions are pretty similar. When you first start Visual Studio, you're going to go and make a new project and make an ASP.NET empty website. Okay, you'll want to give it a name and also choose what location. So we'll call this Coding Class 1, for example. And again, make sure that empty website is selected. When it starts off, it's going to create the basic structure for coding and debugging a web page. I get a little out of focus here. There we go. Okay, so now we have an empty project, and we're going to need to make an HTML file as our basic skeleton for the rest of our code. To make the HTML file, go over to the right where you see your project name, and it's got a little expanding arrow. Right-click on it, and you're going to choose Add, New Item. Sorry, I'm moving things around here. After you've chosen Add New Item, grab HTML Page and do Add. Visual Studio is nice because it gives you helpful tooltips and assists you with spelling and punctuation, so I find it really useful. It gave me the basic skeleton of an HTML document. You may have seen this before if you've ever hit Control-I when you've been on a web page in Chrome. It opens up the inspector and you can see the page source. So this is the smallest, most basic HTML document you can have. It contains all of the basic tags and nothing else. When your computer receives an HTML document on the internet, it must have these basic structures in it so that it knows it's an HTML document. You'll notice it's marked up with tags, and the tags have these greater than and less than signs around them. Let me slide over so you can see that better. Those greater than and less than signs are also called angle brackets, so you'll hear me call them that. So first there's an HTML tag marked with angle brackets, and at the very bottom of your document there's an end HTML tag, so it has a slash and then HTML. So the tags always have a begin tag with no slash, and then an end tag with a slash. Nested inside there's a head section with a head begin tag, and then a head end tag. And then the head usually doesn't contain content for the web page, but it does contain information about it. And so you'll see there's this meta tag with that tells it what the character set is it's using. We're not going to change that, but we will change the title. So if you go in between the begin title tag with those angle brackets and the end title tag with those angle brackets, we're going to put our cursor right in between those, and you'll type in a title for your web page. Okay, all about me. This is the title that shows up in the tab when you're opening your browser. So it is an important feature of the web page. That's all we need in the head section for now. And then we go down to the body section. The body section has a begin body tag and an end body tag. So any actual content for the web page goes in between those two tags. You with me so far? This is the basic structure of a web page. We're going to type a little bit of text inside the body section so we can see what it will look like as a web page. So we'll type in, this page is all about me. And then so I don't know if you can see that. It says, this page is all about me. My name is Dawn. I like pizza, French fries, and coffee. That'll be just fine for a body section for now. So to debug this and see what it looks like, there's a play triangle up here at the top of Visual Studio. It defaulted mine to Google Chrome because that's my default web browser. I can pull down this triangle and choose a different web browser to display this in. So you can choose Google Chrome. I still have Internet Explorer, don't judge me, Microsoft Edge or Firefox or whatever. So just choose, it's a really good practice to make sure it looks good in every web browser that you can imagine. So test it on several different web browsers. I'm going to go ahead and click the triangle, and it'll validate my web page and then show what it looks like in Chrome. Okay, now one thing you might notice, so the title that I set in that tag did show up as the heading of this tab. There's the title. The rest of the content showed as one big blurb of text with no line breaks. And so we learned quickly that line breaks we put in the inside the text of the body don't necessarily translate to the HTML. If you want a line break, you have to do a tag. So the tags teach the web page how to format the text that you put in there. It's not going to format it for you automatically. So now we get into using tags to make sure your document is formatted properly and it looks good. Let's take a look at some tags we can use to format it so it does look good. Okay, so just to go over what we already learned, tags are used to enclose and describe elements on the page. So that text that I typed in between the begin body and end body tag, for example, is an element. Everything in the body goes in between those two tags. You can make a tag that has nothing inside. So a tag that doesn't have any content inside of it doesn't need a begin tag and an end tag. You just make the begin and the end tag as one thing. So an example of that, our first tag that we'll learn that will actually format our text is the line break. So you do open angle bracket, BR, and then a slash in the end angle bracket. It's the begin and end tag all in one. Let's go back to Visual Studio and we'll add some line breaks. So this page is all about me. We're going to add a line break. Okay, and notice that Visual Studio adds the slash angle bracket right after it automatically, so it's really useful. Okay. So if you can see what I did there, I just added the BR tag at the end of all of my lines, so it formats the line breaks. And now when I preview it in my web browser, I'll see it with line breaks. So now we're starting to learn how to use tags to make the document formatted nicely. So a couple of other tags that we're going to learn in this lesson include the heading tag and the paragraph tag. So heading tags are used obviously to separate content and put headings in between those separations. And then paragraphs might be where you have one long blurb of text. So we'll make the title or the first line of our text be a heading, and then the rest of it will be paragraphs. You can make a heading be a major heading like H1. The begin H1 tag begins a major heading, the end H1 tag ends it. And there's also H2, H3, H4, H5, H6, which are smaller and smaller headings for content that's not as important as the H1 heading. So back in Visual Studio, we're going to make this page is all about me a major heading. So before that text, I'll put a begin tag, do an open angle bracket, H1, and then close that tag, and you can see it automatically added the end tag. I don't want it there. I'm going to cut it with Control X and paste it at the end of my heading. So you see how my heading is enclosed between the begin and end tag. And then I've got my line break right after that. These two lines we're going to put inside a paragraph. So again, it added the end tag automatically. I'm going to cut that and put it at the end of that line there. Okay? And then we'll do one final line break at the end, but it's not really important. There's no content after it. And now we'll display it one more time. And now this page is starting to look a little more like it's got some structure to it. We won't go any further with HTML for this very first lesson. It's just to get the hang of how to use tags and how to use it to mark up language. But I will show you how to host it so that you can turn in your projects. So we're going to close this browser here and save your project so far. So click that little Save All button. And then my way of hosting things is a little bit different than what most people do. So in order to find your web page on the internet, you have to host it. You can run a server from home, but it causes some security issues. You would never want to run an open web server on the same Wi-Fi that you run all of your devices in your house. You'd really want to have it on a separate secure network. It's more recommended to just purchase a domain name from a provider like GoDaddy and then just upload your website there. Those usually cost money. And so an easy free solution is to just use a Google site and then embed your HTML into the Google site. It isn't as robust as creating your whole web page from scratch, but it's a really easy way to just get going. So that's the technique that we're going to use. Go to a Google Drive, and you'll do New. And then, sorry, you can't see that super well. There you go, New, and then Google Sites. There it is. Okay, and do Create and Share. So you can give it a page title. Actually, I'm going to call it, you can name it anything you want, but I want to keep mine separate from my teaching web page. This is my student web page. And so to add the HTML that we just made, if you look over in the insert box on the side, there is a set of angle brackets and it says embed. Click embed. Oops, try that one more time. And then when you do, you see two tabs here, by URL or embed code. Click embed code. And we're going to copy and paste all of our HTML in the embed code. So go back to Visual Studio. You can select all of this by doing Control A, and then copy it with Control C. Go back over to your Google site and paste it with Control V. Do next. It shows you a preview of what it looks like. It looks a lot like what it did when we ran the web page in Visual Studio. Click Insert, and you get your HTML right there. So now you have a way to take your learning and make sure it's shared on the site, and you can share it with your friends or your parent or your teacher or whoever's going to be viewing the progress you make in this course. So that brings us to your first assignment. For your first assignment, you're going to answer some questions. Your teacher may have a way for you to turn these questions in. The questions are, what is your computer's IP address? Why is the Ipv6 address preferred over the Ipv4 address? So answer those two questions. How long does it take to ping a favorite website of yours? I want you to create a project in Visual Studio and add a new HTML file. You're going to add a header and write 2 short paragraphs using the p tags. Create a Google site, embed the HTML, and copy and paste the HTML code you just made. Publish the site and turn it in. To publish your site, let's make this be the same name here. There's a little button on the side that says Publish. And then you can say Publish here. And then you can turn that into your teacher when you view the live site by sending your teacher the link to the live version. So you'll just click View, and then you'll get a link here, copy it, paste it, send it to your teacher. Okay, good luck with the first assignment, and we'll look forward to seeing you for lesson 2.